Next lesson, we're going to start talking about additional earnings. As I mentioned, you'll see things like tips. Okay. You'll see things like a bonus. You might talk about a shift premium. Okay. What are tips and bonuses? A tip is common for people in service industry. So if you're working at a restaurant, to earn tips from satisfied customers. All right. They just leave a little extra money on top of their bill. Usually that is divided up amongst the employees working that day or that night. A bonus is extra pay earned when certain conditions of employment are met or exceeded. So a bonus is like if you kind of do good at your job. It entices employees to work a little harder, maybe sell a little more, and then they're entitled to a bonus. And a shift premium, that's extra payment for non-standard work hours. So that might be if like you work through the night, like a night shift. So you might get paid minimum wage, say $15 and whatever cents an hour for regular hours. But if you work the night shift, they might give you $17 an hour or $18 an hour. All right, first example. It says your restaurant gives 5% of the tips received in a shift to employees working in the kitchen. If $2,100 is received in tips and there are 5 people working in the kitchen, how much will each person receive? Well, first of all, we have to think about what 5% of 2,100 is. What did I say on Friday, what the word of means? What mathematical operation should you think? Add, subtract, multiply, or divide? It's multiply. Okay, multiplication is implied. So I want to think of what 5% of $2,100 is. What do I have to do with the 5%? Change it to a decimal. And what is 5% as a decimal? Is it 0.5? It's 0.05. Good. 0.5 is actually 50%. So all I'm going to do here is I'm going to take $2,100 and I'm going to multiply it by 0.05. What do you get? I get $105. Okay. Seems kind of greasy. Of the $2,100 in tips, only $105, only 5% goes to the employees. The other $1,995 sounds like it goes to the restaurant itself or the owner. All right. How would I figure out how much each employee gets? If they get to split $105 and there's 5 of them, what should I do there? Divide. So if I go 105 divided by 5, each person's going to get $21. So there's example 1. Okay? Each person will receive $21. Any issue with that? Good. Make sure you get this copy down, folks. We'll move on to question 2. Question 2 talks about someone selling books. Maybe not. Guess that's question 3. Question 2 talks about someone working a 4-hour shift. So you worked a 4-hour shift as a server and your customer bills totaled $2,500 before tips. Your rate of pay is $10 an hour. How much did you make before tips during the 4 hours? What would you do there? How would you figure out how much they made before the tips? $10 an hour times 4 hours, and that gives you what? $40. Okay, so that's what it should say under here. $10 an hour times 4 hours equals $40. Now, if all of your customers tipped you 10%, that's weak. That's a soft tip. Anyone know what a standard tip is? 15%, that's almost even too low these days. When you get a bill now at a restaurant, typically it comes with the option of 15%, 18%, or 20%. So most people are kind of upping that, provided there's some good service involved. A lot of times they'll say you get 10% of your total sales, but if they're saying all of your customers tip 10%, how much did you make in total? Well, you know you're getting $40 for the 4 hours worked. These are called additional earnings. So I need to figure out how much I'm going to make in tips and then add it to my $40. Now, what is 10% of 2,500? How do I do that calculation? I'm going to go $2,500 and I'm going to multiply it by, what's 10% as a decimal? 0.10 or 0.1. What's 10% of 2,500? Anyone know that? It's $250. $250. What was your regular pay? 10 hours or $10 an hour times 4 hours. That gave us 40. How much is the person going to make? You'd go 250 plus 40, $290 an hour. So they're making considerably more in tips than they are in their hourly wage. Is that all right? A lot of people who work in the service industry depend on these tips. So $290 coming your way. Next question. Guys, okay, you don't want to pay attention? That's great. Don't make me rage out on the internet here. Just put your head down on your desk and go to sleep if you don't want to pay attention. You can, yes. Kyle works in a bookstore selling books. He also sells customers reward cards for $30 that will be give them a discount on future purchases. His employer gives him a bonus of 10% of the amount received if he sells more than 20 cards in a month. So more than 20 cards. That means he has to sell 21 cards in order to get this bonus. If he only sells 15 cards, he doesn't get the bonus. He just gets his regular hourly wage. Okay? Or I guess it's not an hourly wage. He's making, how's he getting paid? Kyle works in a bookstore selling books. He also sells customer reward cards for $30. His employer gives him a bonus of 10% of the amount received if he sells more than 20 cards in a month. If it's regular wages, okay, he is getting an hourly wage. We just don't have to figure them out. They tell us straight up that's how much he's making for the month. $1,883.77. And he sells 27 reward cards. So would he get the bonus? Yes or no question. He gets the bonus if he sells more than 20, and he's selling 27. So does he get the bonus? Yes. How do we figure out the bonus? Well, we're going to take the 27 cards he sold, multiply it by how much was each one worth? The reward card. $30. So 27 times 30. What do you get? $810. Now, he doesn't get to keep all $810. He only gets to keep 10% of it. So once again, I'll ask the question, what's 10% of 810? Does anyone know what that is real quick? All you got to do is swing the decimal place one spot to the left. So 810 would become what? 81. Okay? How do I do it, or how do I show the work? I would change 10% to a decimal, 0.1, and I would multiply it by 810. 810 times 0.1 gives me $81. Now, what do I do to figure out his actual earnings for the month? These are his regular wages. How do I figure out his total wages? Add what? All three of these numbers? Like 810, 81, and 1883.77? I add the regular wages and the bonus. So 1883.77 plus 81 is going to leave me with $1,964.77. So let's block that up again. I don't really like how that looked. I'll go 1883.77 plus $81, and that's going to leave me with $1,964.77. Now, that's how much he makes for the month at the bookstore. So notice when we're doing additional earnings, when we're talking about tips and bonuses, it gets added to the person's regular wages. And the reason I didn't have to figure out what their regular pay was in this question, because they just told it to me straight up. All right, last question. This one is a little more taxing. There's a little more to it, but it shouldn't take us too long to get through it. We're talking about Jacob. He works as a stock clerk for a grocery store in Lab City, Newfoundland. His regular pay is $12 an hour.
Could the following students please come down to the library for the next show?
So it says his regular pay is $12 an hour, but he earns a shift premium of $2 an hour for any hours he works between 5 p.m., so after supper, and 8 a.m., right to the morning. Yes, Noah? Yep. Now, what does it mean? Like, his regular pay is $12 an hour. What would he get paid for those, like, evening, overnight hours? Does it mean he gets paid 2? No, what's he get paid? 14, 12 plus 2. Okay? And it also says Jacob earns time and a half for his overtime pay. He normally works 35 hours a week. So, to answer part A, how much does Jacob make an hour between the hours of 5 p.m. and 8 a.m.? This is his shift premium. Okay? And Lisa told us to find a shift premium, you're going to take $12 an hour, and you're going to add $2 an hour, and he would make $14 an hour if he works the evening or overnight. Why would they pay him more to work through the night? For people don't want to work at night. What do people do at night? They sleep. That's right. So in order to get Jacob to come in and stock the shelves through the night when the store is typically closed, okay, they're going to give him $2 an hour extra. How much does he get paid during overtime? How do you figure out his overtime rate? You got to think back to what we were doing last week. I'm going to take his $12 an hour, his regular pay, and if he's getting paid time and a half, what do I multiply that by? 1.5. And what's that work out to be? $18. So he's getting $14 an hour for his shift premium hours. He's getting $18 an hour for his overtime hours. And what's he get paid for regular time? That's right. $12 an hour. So regular time is $12 an hour. Okay, this is the shift premium. So this is his shift premium time, or his shift premium rate. And his overtime rate was the time and a half, or the $18 an hour. So if you wanted to figure out Jacob's gross pay, you're going to have to consider how many overtime hours they work, how many regular hours they work, and how many shift premium hours they work. And to get his gross earnings, you would add those three things together: his regular pay, his shift premium pay, and his overtime pay. So if we flip over, I think we get Jacob's schedule. All right, let's block this stuff out for a second. I'll hide this. Let's try and figure out how many hours he works in total. So this is a schedule. From on Monday, he goes from 12 a.m., that's midnight, to 8 a.m. How many hours would that be in total? That's 8 hours. So I'll just put the total up here. Same thing on Tuesday. That's 8 more hours. It's 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. On Wednesday, he goes from 4 p.m. So that's like after school, before supper time, before dinner, whatever you call it, to 12 a.m. to midnight. How many hours would that be? That's also 8. Good. On Thursday, he's working from 6 a.m. to 11 a.m. So that's early morning to just before lunchtime. 6 to 11 would be how many hours? 5. 6 to 11 on Thursday, 6 to 11 on Friday, that's 5 more. What about on Saturday? 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. How many hours would that be total? 7 hours. How many hours does he work in total? What would you do to figure out his total hours? Add them up. 8, 16, 24. This would be 34. And 7 would make what? 41. Is everyone okay with him having 41 total hours? And how do you figure out his overtime hours? Over 35. So you're going to take the total hours he works, 41, and you're going to subtract 35. You cool with that? Why do we subtract 35? Because it says he normally works 35 hours a week, so that's considered like regular pay. All right. If he works 41 in total, 35 are considered regular. 41 minus 35 leaves 6 overtime hours. That's important because he's going to get paid $18 an hour. Did I use the right color for that? Yes, I did. $18 an hour for his overtime hours. Now, that means there's 35 hours left that have to be divided amongst regular hours and his shift premium hours. Now, what do I mean by shift premium? Let's go for these guys first. Shift premium are between 5 p.m. and 8 a.m. How many of these ones would be shift premium? That's midnight to 8 a.m. All of them. All 8 are shift premium hours. Okay? So that would be 8 shift premium hours. So if all of these are shift premium hours, all of these would be shift premium hours. And only 7 of these ones. Why not? Yeah, 4 to 5, the first hour he works would not be that shift premium hour. He's not getting the extra $2 because it's outside the 5 p.m. to 8 a.m. window. What about here? Only 2 shift premium hours. What are they? 6 to 8, 6 to 7, 7 to 8. Same thing here, 2. And lastly, what about these? Eight to 3. Any of them shift premium hours? No. So there's 0 shift premium hours. Total 8 and 8 is 16 and 7, or 16 and 4 would be 20. Do you agree that 8 plus 8 plus 7 plus 2 plus 2 would give me 27 shift premium hours? Now, if 27 and 6 gives me 33 and he worked 41 hours total, how many regular hours did he work? Anyone know what this number would be? How many regular hours did the person work, Jacob? How would you figure it out? Couple things you could do. If you already know he's got 6 regular or 6 overtime hours and the remaining hours, 35 left, are broken up between shift premium and regular, 27 plus the number of regular hours would have to equal 35. So how many hours would you have to add to 27 to get 35? 8. So this is 8 hours. You could also go 41 minus 6 minus 27. It's going to give you 8. You could go 35 minus 27. That's going to give you 8. But look at these numbers. 6 plus 8 plus 27. What should they all add up to? 41. Okay, 27 and 8 is 35 and 6 is 41. So we're good. To answer the question, how many shift premium hours did he work? What should we say here? 27. How many overtime hours did he work? What should we say here? 6 hours. Everyone okay with that? All right, let's move on to the next page. All right, part E wants to know what percentage of Jacob's weekly hours are regular hours. So underneath here, we should see overtime hours was 6, premium hours was 27, and regular hours was 8. The total number of hours was 41. Okay, that's the information that we found on the previous page. And these are all hours. So you could abbreviate with HRS or just H. If I want to know what percentage of Jacob's weekly hours are regular hours, I got to take the number of regular hours he works, which would be what? 8. And I'm going to divide it by the total hours. And then I want to change that to a percentage, so I'll multiply it by 100. What do you get? What's 8 divided by 41? I got 0.195, and I'll stop after the 4th, 1951. When I multiply that by 100, I get 19.51%. So 19.5% of his total hours worked are regular hours. What's part F say? It says what percentage of his weekly earnings are paid at the regular rate? Everyone okay with that? We can move on to the next one. C's and pencil still going. Okay, here we go. What percentage of his weekly earnings are paid at the regular rate? So I want to know his regular paid hours or what his regular pay is. I'm going to change this. We'll go his regular pay over his total pay. How would you figure out the person's total pay? Total pay, that could be called gross earnings or gross pay. Well, the first thing I need to do is I need to figure out what his regular pay is. I'll figure out his shift premium pay. And then I'll figure out his OT pay. And then I'll show you how to find what to do with these three things in order to get his gross pay. All right. For starters, what is he paid an hour for regular hours worked? $12 an hour. Thank you. So to figure out his regular pay, I'm going to take $12 an hour. And how many regular hours did he work? It was 8 regular hours. Okay, 8 regular hours times $12 an hour for his regular rate. Anyone know what 12 times 8 is? 80 and 16. $96. So I took $12 an hour, multiplied it by 8 hours. Okay, on to the next one. We're going $14 an hour. That is his shift premium rate. How many shift premium hours did he work? 27, Marina. Thank you. What's 14 times 27? $378. What does he get paid for the overtime hours? What's the rate? It was $18 an hour times how many hours? Anyone know? 6 hours. That'd be 60 and 48. That's going to give me $108. How would you figure out his gross pay? Or his total pay? I would add 96 and 378 and 108. And if I go 378 plus 108 plus 96, I get 582. So this number right here represents his total pay. Now, if you want to figure out what percentage of his weekly earnings are paid at the regular rate, you're going to take his regular pay, $96, divide it by his total pay. What's his total pay? 582. And I'm going to multiply that by 100 because I want to change it to a percentage. What's 96 divided by 582? I get 0.1649. If I multiply that by 100, I get 16.49%. Okay? So 16.49% of his total pay are his regular pay. All right, today's lesson, additional earnings. All of these things are added to the person's regular pay. You're talking tips, bonuses. Sometimes a person will earn commission on top of their regular pay, so they don't just get paid commission. So it can be considered a additional earning as well. Those are the questions I would like you to work on from the sheet.